You've seen the best.
You've seen the worst.
Now here's the rest of both worlds.
I'm GayFesh. What say we find a couple of low-mileage pit woofies?
And I'm Ari, and I'm going to yeet that man into the nearest red dwarf.
And today we will be discussing the Star Trek The Next Generation episodes Conspiracy and The Neutral Zone. And instead of getting into some small talk, we're going to get right into the episodes, and we will recap our feelings about the whole season. So, Ari, kick us off with Conspiracy.
So Conspiracy is the 25th episode of the first season. It first aired on the 9th of May, 1988. The teleplay was by Tracy Torme. The story was by Robert Sabaroff, and it was directed by Cliff Bowl.
So, this is the first sequel episode we've had in TNG to this point.
And I didn't even realize it was a sequel episode until I saw that guy whisper in the captain's ear, and I was like, why do I know him? And then I realized it was that guy who was like fist pumping and excited to join the Enterprise last time we saw him.
For those who didn't catch Coming of Age, in that episode, this guy named Remick was like interrogating the entire crew because Admiral Quinn was suspicious of things going around in Starfleet, and he wanted to make sure he could vet Picard and know that Picard was on the up and up,
so that he could be the commandant of Starfleet or whatever. So he could position people where he wanted them.
Mm-hmm. And Picard turned that down, but he's still, keeping his eye open. And in this one, Picard gets an emergency message from Captain Walker Keel, who's an old friend of his and Jack Crusher's, who is like, hey, I know you've got a mission somewhere else, but you've got to go to this planet to meet me clandestinely, and you can't tell anyone about it. And Picard's like, this is very suspicious, but you're one of my oldest friends, so he goes. And, he tries to keep everyone else out of it. He's just like, sorry, this is captain business only. Nobody else can know about it. He beams down.
By himself, much to Riker's chagrin.
Sure, but, you can understand why he would be doing this.
Yep.
And there's a couple other captains there who hold him at phaser point immediately, and Walker starts asking him trick questions to make sure that Picard is who he says he is and isn't impersonating himself.
And how do you cut your sandwiches to eat them?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that kind of a thing.
And then they go to Earth. That was exciting. I was really excited. I had no idea we were going to go to Earth. I was very excited. I wrote, are we going to go to Earth? All in capitals. And then I was like, Earth in all capitals.
But before they go to Earth, after, Walker has given the whole thing and Picard's like, I don't know, this sounds like conspiracy nonsense. They just go back on their way, and then Walker's ship blows up.
Right. That's right. I forgot about that part. It does blow up. The Horatio.
Beverly even, came up to the bridge because she's like, I heard Walker's here. And then, he dies.
Mm-hmm.
Because Walker Reed was the one who introduced Jack Crusher to Beverly.
That was one of the trick questions. The scroll question was who introduced who to who.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting, too.
And I kind of, you see a little bit of sadness on her face. She's just like, oh my God, he died. And I just totally missed it. But I felt like I should have, I don't know. I wanted to see a little bit more of a reaction from her on that one.
Well, I wondered if the lack of reaction was because Picard lied to her. Because even Walker said, please tell Beverly hello for me. And then he lied. She said, did you see Walker? And he was like, no. And so, maybe she thought Walker wasn't on the ship, maybe?
No, she knew he was Captain of the Horatio. When the Horatio blew up, she knew Walker died.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, Picard just lied about meeting him because he wanted to, keep that meeting under wraps.
Yeah.
But since it now seems that Walker's suspicions have some merit to them, considering he literally blew up after that meeting, Picard brings in the senior staff on the allegations and decides to go to Earth to get to the bottom of these suspicions.
Too bad that these two episodes weren't reversed, just to say, because they could have taken those Earth people home.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I have that thought too. So they get to Earth, and Starfleet's like, oh, what? Enterprise, well, it's always good to see you, but aren't you supposed to be on the Outer Rim? And they're like, well, we just figured we would stop in and
pop on by, yeah.
Pop on by and, hey, see if anybody happens to have any, weird alien things crawling around in their brain.
So, and then, in the end, they do. They do all have... Oh, but I was so betrayed by Tryla. I was like, I even have in my notes here, Tryla is my new favorite.
Oh, the captain, who was, she was one of the captains that they met in that clandestine meeting. She was supposed to be one of the ones who was vetted and good, but it looked, maybe they got to her before that point? Or
I was trying to figure that out. Like, do you think they got to her after we met with Walker? I think she was the reason the Walker ship blew up.
I think that's probably it. I think they probably had gotten to her, but Walker had already trusted her, so...
Right. Because, like, very clearly the Remick guy was not the same fist-pumping dorky dude that was there a few weeks ago.
No, I'm pretty sure. Well, and Quinn had his suspicions at that point, too, right? Because we see Quinn and Remick again, but they're both now infected by this insectoid alien thing that goes in through your mouth and, you know, takes control of you and has a little blue gill that sticks out the back of your neck so that
it can breathe, because that's weird evolution. Yeah. It lives inside of people, but it needs to breathe. So what did you think of this episode? Do you like this one?
It's a really graphic episode.
I was really surprised, and I actually accidentally got it spoiled for myself because I was trying to figure out where I knew Remick from. And so I went to the Memory Alpha, and it's full of pages of like all the pictures of the prosthetics. And so I was like, oh, holy crap, what's coming at the end of this episode? And I don't usually, like, I don't read anything when I'm looking for that kind of stuff. But this was the first one where, like, the actual, like, prosthetics and makeup and special effects were really interesting.
Oh, yeah, it was a really cool job that they did. But Remick turns out to be, like, the mother alien who's, like, you know, spawning all the other ones.
I think they called him the mother. Yeah.
So they, you know, they blow him up in a really gruesome display where it's funny, too, because, like, he just is sitting there in a chair. He's like, we seek peaceful coexistence. And Picard and Riker just look at each other and wordlessly just blast the shit out of him.
I know.
They're like, nope. You say that, but you've got little things crawling in and out of you and you're mind controlling everyone. And they shoot him and his entire torso explodes, and I don't know how this was okay in 1980s TV. It was very graphic.
Was really surprised. Now, 1980s horror movies were really that level of graphic. So it was like, maybe they had been, like, I'm thinking Freddy Krueger type stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they had gotten really, like, kind of gory by the late 80s. And so maybe, like, that was when we started to, like, relax what we'd show on TV. Because, yeah, like, it was very chest burstery. Like, it was I don't know, it was graphic. And then there was another alien inside of him, like a bigger one, not just the little trilobite looking things. Mm-hmm. It was an interesting episode. Really interesting. So I want to go back to the beginning.
Okay.
So this is my favorite cold open of all time so far. We've got Riker in charge. We've got Deanna giving him googly eyes. We've got Geordi telling a sex joke. And we've got Data trying to understand the joke and then his laughing. Like, it was just... Everything about it was so good. I loved it so much.
It was the first time Data had ever laughed in his life, I feel like.
I think so. And the way he stopped, like, and it just stopped mid-laugh.
He's like...
And then he just turns to his little keyboard thing, and he's like, oh, back to work now.
Like, he realized halfway through that laugh that this isn't working and it's not funny. I'm going to stop now.
I find myself relating more and more to Data.
Oh, how about when Picard gave Data something to analyze, I think to try and find patterns of this alien infestation in Starfleet. And Data just starts, like, talking to himself while working with the computer to analyze, and the computer thinks he was asking a question, and it responds like, oh, and then Data's like, oh no, I was talking to myself. And then he starts babbling about how he's talking to himself. And
what it means.
Like, oh wow, that's amazing. I'm talking to myself. What a human thing. And then the computer's just like, thank you, I understand. It's like, even the computer's like, shut up, Data, you're babbling.
I know, my notes say, oh my god. Even the computer is over Data being a walking thesaurus.
It was so funny.
It was so good. This, and right around that time, apparently in my notes, is the first time I wrote, I miss Tasha. But there's a lot of times that I was like, especially in the next episode, like, where is, like, they need to replace her because there's no security on the Enterprise.
Worf is now the chief of security as well as the tactical officer. So he runs all of that.
That's good, because him and Geordi do come running at one point, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I loved that cold open. I thought it was great. Even the googly eyes that Deanna was giving to Bill were just like, oh, look at her, loving on Bill.
Bill.
Now, whenever I reference Riker and Troy, I've been calling him Bill, but only when I'm talking about Deanna.
How about, because like it's the planet that they were talking about going to, Pacifica or whatever it was called. It's an ocean planet. And they're all like looking forward to some good time on the beach, except for Worf, because they're like, "Oh, come on, Worf, don't you want to go swimming?" He's like, "No, swimming is too much like bathing."
Do Klingons not bathe? That's actually one of my questions.
I hope they do, because I don't know. I don't think I'd want to be standing near Worf on the bridge. They really can't complain about those little pig monster things if they also don't take baths. No, my notes say swimming is too much like bathing, and then it says WTF Worf. My note says swimming is too much like bathing. Worf stinky.
He's so stinky. So what about the Code 47? We ever see that before, or is that a new thing?
That's a new thing, and I think I mentioned this before, but the number 47 is a frequently used thing, and I think this is actually the first instance of it in the show.
I've been watching for it since you said that, because you said it was 42 with inflation, which I think is so funny. And you know who would think it was so funny? Douglas Adams. I think he would think that's hilarious.
Of course he would. It is a very Douglas Adams joke to give.
It is. So the planet, the Ditalix B, sounds like a prescription for an SSRI, doesn't it? Did it sound like I was... And they were about to tell me about all of the side effects that might occur when I go down to that planet.
Possible side effects of Ditalix B include alien infestation, conspiracy,
having your body filled with little bug things,
violent explosion of the chest.
Talk to your doctor about if Ditalix B is right for you. So I hated Walker from the beginning. Was I supposed to like him?
Right? He comes off so creepy right from the get-go. And I kind of get it. Like, he's, at this point, very paranoid.
Yeah.
So, you know, he stumbled onto something that could, destroy the Federation. So, like, I can understand from his perspective why he's acting like that. But, yeah, it does not make you want to trust him at first. When he calls and he's just like, keep this all on the down low, and I'm going to be very creepy about it with you, Picard. And I'm just like,
with my
don't trust this
very
dude.
Low gravelly voice. Yeah.
Hopefully he was a nicer person back when they were all pals.
I hope so. I mean, he introduced Beverly and Jack. And I mean, that was another reason I thought Wesley should be there, was because of that. But whatever. You know how I feel when Wesley isn't there.
Yeah.
So he gets down to the SSRI planet, Ditalix, and he goes down there and he takes the world's longest and slowest walk down a ramp while we all watch.
Well, they wanted to show off the set.
They really did. They were like, let's show you this red thing we've designed. It really, and here we go. I know, I think it's been a couple episodes since I've brought this up, but it really reminded me of 2001 when they get to the Tycho crater on Mars, or I'm sorry, not Mars, the moon, where the second monolith is, because it's kind of down in a hole and you have to walk down a ramp to get to it. Felt like a deliberate nod to me.
Everything feels like a 2001 reference to you.
I know. And it is. Everything's a 2001 reference.
When you gave birth to your kid, you were like, oh, it's a baby, like in 2001.
I had not seen 2001 yet, but if I had, I probably would have been like, look, I made a space baby, just like Dave. Someday we should just do an episode where I talk about 2001 so people can know how weird I am about 2001.
Well, that's something that, I mean, I watched it once when I was 7, so I remember nothing about it. So it could be a good role reversal because you're the expert.
It could make a good one-off episode where I'm the expert and everything, yeah. Anyway, so I really liked that set. I thought it was really good. Obviously, this was the point where I started getting Scroll vibes because they were giving him the third degree, about who introduced who and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I've seen this movie.
You had mentioned before we started recording that the alien captain down there, you were like, is that guy Sloth from the Goonies?
Yeah, because he kind of looked like him.
So I looked him up as a different actor, but he's Michael Berryman, and he has hypohidrotic ectodermal dysplasia, which prevents the formation of hair, fingernails, teeth, and sweat glands.
Oh, interesting. So it wasn't makeup, or was it?
Well, some of it was makeup, because they gave him blue skin and that ridge and everything, but he also does have a very unique look which probably lends itself well to an alien appearance.
Yeah, because I looked at his IMDb, and it looked like he has been in a few things, and I think he might have been in other Star Trek things, too.
Yeah, it looks like he had a minor role in Star Trek 4 as a Starfleet officer, just some other random alien. But not Sloth. Different.
Not Sloth, but I mean, you can see why I thought it, right? He was, especially because he was in the dark.
Yeah.
But then I was doing the math, when did Goonies come out? I think right around the same time. I think it was the late 80s.
Well, this came out in 88. Okay, and Goonies came out in 85. So a couple years before this.
Yeah, so definitely. Maybe it was supposed to kind of be on purpose, because I thought he really looked like the character. But...
I don't think it was on purpose. I think the guy just has a look.
Yeah, okay. I didn't so now we're to Earth, which I thought was really exciting, because how often do we go to Earth? It doesn't feel like very often.
Oh, very, very rarely. I think there might be, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4 more episodes in the entire series where they go to Earth.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it at all. Yeah.
It's space exploration. You want to go out places that we haven't been.
Right, not Earth. Although it's interesting to see Earth 400 years in the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, to see what the hallways on Earth look like 400 years in the future.
Yeah. I didn't like their Admiral uniforms.
They don't really... I think they stopped using those after the first season. When the first time we saw one of those in Too Short a Season, I had thought that was the only time we saw it, but it looks like they used it all throughout this season. But afterwards, they go for something a little less gaudy. They get rid of the sash, and it's more of a... It still looks like a more official uniform than the standard officer stuff, but that sash is ugly.
So ugly. So they get to Earth, and Captain Picard is trying to figure out if they're aliens or what's going on. I don't think he even has an idea it's aliens, but he decides to let the guy that he knows that came to try to vet him on the Enterprise up to the Enterprise with a briefcase. Kasha must be rolling over in her holographic grave because...
Well, he asks Quinn about, his suspicions, and Quinn was like, what? No, nothing's wrong. And then Picard's like, uh-oh, they got to him. And so he tells Riker, keep an eye on him. That is not Admiral Quinn.
Yeah.
Apparently, Quinn had beamed up there because they wanted to get Dr. Crusher infected because the briefcase had one of the things. But
yes, he was very mad when he thought that Riker was infected when he comes back down, because he's like, that was for the doctor. So they really
Riker couldn't be helped. There was a complication. We couldn't be helped. But and apparently, and then Quinn just goes and kicks a bunch of people's asses. He throws Riker across the room, then he throws Worf across the room. He smashes
all while smiling.
He smashes a door through Geordi. Like Geordi's on the other side of the door, and he just bashes the door, and Geordi goes flying. And then Dr. Crusher herself shows up and
saves the day. Yeah.
Saves the day, phasering him and she had it set on kill because setting it on stun wasn't going to have any effect.
I know. I was so proud of her.
But fortunately, that didn't kill him. They just knocked him out, and they were able to sedate him and examine the thing and figure out what's going on. And so because of that, and finding the bluegill, they simulated that thing on the back of Riker's neck so that Riker can beam down and pose as one of them, so that they have their guard down around him.
But can we please, before we move on, we have to talk about Riker's crane kick to the face. He did such a it was such a Karate Kid crane kick to the face to the guy, and I was like, "You get him, Riker." I loved it.
Well, and I also loved how you could obviously tell, they would have the cuts on Quinn's face when he's boasting and everything with that big grin, but then it would cut to a wide shot where it's very obviously a stuntman in a gray wig who can actually do those big because he also did a big sweeping kick too, and I was just like, I can't even kick that high. No. And that's not a dude in his 50s.
I tried to do a high kick once. We were coming out of the movie version of Rent, and I was trying to demonstrate how Mimi kicks her leg up and goes over the bar at the movie theater, and I pulled my groin muscle so bad.
Yeah. You got to stretch before you try that.
Yeah, I was just like, yeah, sure, I'm as good as 19-year-old Rosario Dawson. Oh, and then my favorite line of the whole episode Vitamins. They do wonders for the body.
Yes.
I do have a note here that says, no, you will not infect my wife with that alien, meaning Beverly.
Oh, and can we talk about when Picard goes down to have dinner with the admirals, and then they open the bowls and they're full of like worms and stuff, and everyone's just like, "Oh, dig in," and Picard's like, "Ugh," and I'm like, "I've eaten mealworms before. They're fine. There's not really that much flavor to them.
My lizard eats them.
Yeah, they're fine."
So my notes just say big old bowl of mealworms. That's all it says. Mm-hmm. Oh, we got to see the Vulcan neck pinch.
Yeah, we did.
So I thought that was, my notes even say maybe Riker is faking. Ha, I called it.
Yep.
The neck pinch, I was like, oh man, I forgot about its existence. I was literally like, oh, that's right. Vulcan neck pinch, that's a thing. So I was pretty excited to see it.
I'm trying to think how many characters that aren't Vulcan have used the neck pinch at some point. I think Data has used it at some point in the show. I think there have been times where like a non-Vulcan who has like mind melded with a Vulcan is able to use it for like a brief period of time because they've got like a psychic connection to the Vulcan.
Okay.
So I don't think it's anything specific to Vulcan physiology that lets you do the neck pinch. I think it's just Vulcans have mastered it themselves.
Right. That's what I always took it as in the original series.
And the reason that it even exists to begin with is because Leonard Nimoy, in one episode that he was written that he was supposed to punch a guy out, and he's just like, I don't know, Spock doesn't seem like a violent kind of a guy. I feel like he would have another way to deal with him. So he came up with the neck pinch.
Interesting. It triggered a weird kind of traumatic memory from my childhood because I had forgotten my mom used to do it. She used it as like a punishment. Like if she wanted to she'd reach up and pinch your neck really bad. And I know she got it from Star Trek. She loved the original series. And Leonard it's really
Nimoy
weird.
Would not approve.
That's what exactly. Like, I can't believe that she would look at something that was like meant to be sort of like a peaceful way to disarm someone and use digging into her own child's shoulder as like a way to punish them, but call it the neck pinch anyway. I just remembered that and I was like, ugh, yeah. Ugh. But I was excited to see it used since it is a Vulcan thing. I think that wheelchair that our fist pump guy, why can't I think of his name? Remick? Is it Remick? Uh-huh. I think that the wheelchair he was sitting in is Benjamin Button's wheelchair.
Well, it wasn't a wheelchair. It was just a...
But I think it was, though. It looked just like the one, because the one that looked like Pike's wheelchair. Do you know what I'm talking about? The one from...
It was blocky like it, but it wasn't a wheelchair, because he was ambulatory. He was walking around. It was just in that one room where they confront him, he's sitting down while they do it. And I'm assuming they had him sitting down while they did it so that once his chest explodes and they have the little penis monster come out from under it, that they just had all of the puppetry and everything underneath that chair that they could hide it.
That snivelly little middle management guy, he was so good at playing a weirdo. Like when that weird claymation stop motion thing went up his leg and he just weirdly creepily opened his mouth so it could climb in, I was like, well, this was your calling, guy. I think you play this guy pretty well.
Yeah, he was definitely well cast for that role because you hated him the first time you saw him, and here now he's a creepy infested alien thing that you definitely want to blow up.
Yeah.
He blew up like a champ. I tell you, if I were in his shoes, my chest wouldn't have exploded at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
So I was like, guess you're not going to get to join the Enterprise now, buddy.
Yeah. It's funny, too, because I was even thinking back to the Coming of Age episode. I had forgot that Quinn and Remick show back up in this episode. I mean, I knew there was like a follow-up to there's a conspiracy thing, but I didn't remember these two guys came back for it. So when I remembered that it was Remick who was the main one who dies, I was just like, oh, I feel bad for him.
I know. I had kind of, because I thought he was kind of cute with his fist pumping and his, when my assignment's up, I want to be put here. You know, I thought that was all really interesting. And I liked him, so I was kind of sad to see him go. So while I was watching the episode, my husband brought up an interesting thing that I want to put to you. Okay. Do you think that Data can buy into conspiracy theories? Do you think there's any, like, if he hears a conspiracy theory, is it easy for him to debunk it because there's no proof or whatever? Or do you think there's a way where he would be, like, able to go, okay, there's enough credence that this could be possible?
Well, I mean, I think anybody when there's enough credence to a conspiracy theory, you could probably say, okay, that's possible. Like, I mean, we don't have any proof that somebody else killed Jeffrey Epstein, but like at this point, I feel like the people who are like, oh no, Jeffrey Epstein totally killed himself, I feel like those are the crazy people, right?
Right.
I think it's contextual. It depends on how much evidence you have. And, you know, there can be suspicions without, you know, making outright claims. And you can treat people with an appropriate level of skepticism in that regard.
Because there's some times where people like will put their conspiracy theories out to me and I'll go, you know, I see why you could think that's possible, you know, but I don't buy into it if there's no proof, you know? Mm-hmm. And so it's like the difference between like, okay, I can entertain and understand why you might, but I don't really believe it. And I think that's something Data would be capable of. It's like rationalizing, you know?
I think everybody is capable of rationalizing to an extent to themselves. Yeah. I mean, Voyager had addressed this both with Tuvok and with 7 of 9. There was actually a whole episode of Voyager where 7 of 9 fell down like a conspiracy theory rabbit hole.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, like we're like a severe conspiracy theory rabbit hole where she started like piecing different things together, and like the whole episode was just like, here is the mindset of a conspiracy theorist, and here's why it's wrong, and like Janeway, you know, has to like give her like a motherly talk to pull her out of it, and she's like, no, all of these things happen because we're your friends and we love you.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe I'm kind of thinking I want to rewatch Voyager because like I've said before, and you know, it was there and it was playing, but I wasn't really paying attention to it. But I got the major point of them being lost and stuff like that, but I wasn't paying attention to a lot of the nuance because I didn't really care, you know.
Right.
So my last question, and I'm about to ask it before we move to the next episode, I'm realizing now why they had to keep that guy alive on the Enterprise is because if they had just... Because Riker and Picard went down and murdered a bunch of Starfleet, like, high-up people. Yeah. Or Federation high-up people or whatever. And I was like, are they just going to not, like, talk about that? And then I realized, just as I was about to ask that question, that, well, because that other guy is alive on the Enterprise, he can explain.
Yeah, he's a high-ranking admiral, too, and he can be like, no, yeah, and he was possessed himself. He's like, no, yeah, absolutely. These things were like, yeah, they were controlling us. And Picard and Riker did the right thing.
Yeah, because they need that. Otherwise, Picard and Riker are going to jail. Yeah.
How did you like the ending of the episode where Data picks up a transmission that's a homing beacon? And it just, the last shot of the episode is just the Enterprise drifts off, and then the camera starts going forward through space as we hear the signal going beep, 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 beep.
I know. I was like, I didn't know how to feel about it. I felt like they were like saying, well, we might see these guys again, you know, like we might see these alien dudes again. Or basically just saying when you think you get rid of a threat, they're still out there. But I thought it was but it fit the episode. It was a weird ending compared to the other 24 episodes I've seen, but it also felt fitting for the episode because there was a different tone to the episode as well.
I will tell you that the original intention was for there to be sequels to this.
And they didn't make them?
They did, but not in the way they intended. The original intention was that there would be a recurring threat of an insectoid race that could possess humans and was going to be a big threat to the Federation. But it was so expensive to do all of that effects and stuff, they decided, well, we like the possession aspect of it, and it's probably cheaper to like glue wires to people's face.
So the Borg, I see. Interesting. Okay, so it's kind of like the origin of the Borg then, yeah. Right?
This is ostensibly, and in the writer's room, this is like the first Borg episode. It didn't end up being the Borg, so it's disconnected in that regard, but from like an intention standpoint, this was supposed to be the Borg's origin.
Interesting, yeah. Okay. No, that's cool. I like that. Well, I guess it's time for us to move on to the Neutral Zone, which is the 26th episode of the first season. Also the season finale. It first aired on the 16th of May, 1988. The teleplay was by Maurice Hurley. The story was by Deborah McIntyre and Mona Clee. It was directed by James L. Conway.
The episode's title is The Neutral Zone, but that's kind of a very small part of the story.
Yeah, they act like the Neutral Zone stuff is the big story, but really it's the cryogenically frozen humans.
So the Enterprise finds a derelict Earth vessel from apparently either the late 90s or early 2000s. Data goes and investigates, finds 3 people cryogenically frozen, and beams them over to the Enterprise. And Picard's not even on the Enterprise at this point. He's like coming back from some meeting. So like Data's like, well, I want to investigate. And Riker's like, all right, but be back before Picard gets here.
Right, because Dad went away and the big brother who was watching the ship was like, yes, you can do that thing as long as Dad doesn't find out.
So they beam him over, and then Data has Dr. Crusher look at them, and she ends up is like, okay, well, they all died before they were frozen, but it looks like it was cryonics. It looks like they died with stuff that is easily treatable for us, but just at the time was fatal. So she went ahead and cured them all and brought them back to life.
And it turns out they're all terrible people.
Well, 2 of them are terrible people.
2 of them. And one is just written terribly. I got some opinions about that woman.
So the idea here, I think, was these are all supposed to be people from like 10 years in the future. So they're all just modern people. They're people who would be watching TNG. Here's them, how they would react to the future. There's a woman who, she was just a housewife who didn't even know that she was going to be cryonically frozen. Apparently, it was just something her husband did.
Impetuously did, yeah.
Then we've got Sunny, who is apparently
that man I hate. Go ahead.
Country music star who had the money to have himself brought back, and I think he said that he would rather the money go to that company than to any of his ex-wives.
Right.
The third one, and the guy I hate the most,
the financier.
The financier.
I just had Southern asshole dude and other asshole dude written down.
Yeah, his name is Ralph, and he is just, some like stockbroker investment dickhead.
He's a Wall Street bro
who thinks that he's been resurrected on like a luxury cruise ship because he's like, listen, I'm sure your captain thinks whatever he's doing is very important, but I have to check my portfolio. So please get me a copy of the Wall Street Journal and get me a phone so I can call my lawyer and check up on my investments. And it's like, dude, he's
the dumbest man I've ever met, because like we tell him what year it is, as if I'm on the Starfleet. Yeah. We wake him up and we tell him what year it is, and he's like, I need to call my lawyer. Like, you think your lawyer lived for 400 years, buddy?
Yeah,
like,
Picard literally told him, is like, your lawyer's been dead for centuries. He's like, yes, but he was a top partner in a very prestigious law firm, and trust me, that law firm is still there. And I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, no, dude, they killed all the lawyers in like 2078.
And so I guess at the end of the episode, it turns out the humans are humans, and then it turns out that the Romulans are Romulans. Like, that was kind of just the end. Like, that's what makes the neutral zone part so kind of like, as far as plot goes, it was just a setup for season 2, right?
Yeah, it was to reintroduce the Romulans. So the problem there is that there have been Federation bases all along our side of the neutral zone that have been destroyed. They've gone and investigated them, and it looks like they have just been like completely scooped up off the planet.
Yeah, I want to know about that technology. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know who did it.
Yeah, me too. They're wondering if it's the Romulans, but then the Romulans show up themselves, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, our bases were scooped up on our side too. That's why we're here in the neutral zone, because we wanted to see if you guys did it." But it looks like no, you don't have the technology. They're all like, very suspicious. But it was also there to be like, we Romulans, we haven't been interacting with you guys for about 60 years because we had our own things to deal with. But I see that was a mistake because the Federation is spreading everywhere, and we aren't having it. We're back.
Goodbye. We're back. Yeah. Okay, so that is the episode. Like, I was a little disappointed in the neutral zone B plot, to be honest, because I kept thinking it wasn't going to be the Romulans because of how often they were saying it's got to be the Romulans, the Romulans, the Romulans. I was like, okay, so it's not going to be the Romulans. And then it ended up just straightforward being the Romulans.
Well, it ended up being the Romulans showing up, but they did not scoop up the bases.
What did you think of Riker being so impetuous to battle there at the end, where he's like, just put up the shields and get the photons and should we this? Because part of me was like, okay, he's trying to be prepared, but part of me was like, stop being such a like, I don't know, like he was trying to push this narrative of fighting.
He hadn't been there when Troy was giving Picard the briefing about the Romulans and how they always react. They wait for the other person to make the first move. So Riker didn't realize that making those decisions would definitely get them into a fight. And Picard was banking on, no, the Romulans are cautious. They want to see what's going on. They're not
Can any ship cloak itself? Because I thought it was the Klingon birds of prey that could cloak themselves, but the Romulans seem to be cloaked too, right?
The Romulans were the first ones with the cloaking device.
Oh, okay. So I just have it reversed in my head.
But the Klingons and Romulans had an alliance for about 100 years, and so they shared that technology, but it is a Romulan technology.
Oh, so it started with the Romulans.
Yes.
And then I didn't know until this episode that Romulans are related to Vulcans.
That was actually established in the very first Romulan episode, along with the cloaking device in the original series, and I can't believe I am blanking on the name. I'm going to look it up right now.
Okay. Have you ever played Fallout 4?
No, well, I've played maybe 5 minutes of it.
So the beginning of it...
Balance of Terror is the name of the episode. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, so at the beginning of Fallout 4, you're in your house, and then the bomb drops, and you rush over to the vault where you're going to be put in the vault to be protected from the bombs.
Right.
And in Fallout 4 in particular, you're rushed in, and you think you're being put into a normal vault, but you're actually being put into one where the experiment is to cryogenically freeze you.
Right.
And then you're resurrected like 300 years later. And so immediately I was like, oh, hey, it's Fallout 4. But none of those 3 people would have survived in the wasteland. And I just had to say that. None of those people. Sonny would be dead. Like the second he stepped out. I hated Sonny. Did I mention I hated Sonny?
Well, I wanted to get your reaction to when Sonny was asking Dr. Crusher for drugs, and when she told him no, he grabbed her ass.
I was so mad.
And the look on her face, like she was like, he grabbed her ass and then walked away, and you could see the look on her face, like if that man hadn't walked away, he would have been dead right now.
So dead. Like, she set her phaser to kill last episode, buddy.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you need to understand that you need to get your hands off that woman, you know? I was so mad.
But he seems like he was, aside from being a complete sexist asshole, he seemed like he was pretty well adjusted to having shown up in the future. He's like, hey, this is all cool.
Because I think it was exactly what he expected. But this is where I was like, so I have a chronic illness, and I joke all the time about wanting a robot body or a clone body or whatever happens. I'll take, right now, of all the sci-fi bodies, I think Westworld bodies would be the best.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For me. Yeah, but I was watching this, and I was like, I want to wake up on the Enterprise 400 years in the future. These people are being so weird about it. I would be like, hell yeah. Like, get me on this spaceship. I'm in space. You know, like, I would be so excited. Like, these people did not react the way that I would react.
Well, you have to consider that you're not just waking up, hell yeah, I'm in space. You're waking up and everyone I know and love is dead.
I know. But see, 2 of them signed up for that. They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And that's why the mother, she made me so sad. Like, the way that she was written, like, the only thing that matters is being a mother. That bothered me. But there was I also thought it was really cheesy that Data did not know the term homemaker.
That was funny. I thought that was funny.
Except for that he knows the term financier when there's no money anymore.
Well, they know the Ferengi.
That's true.
No, I think that was probably a deliberate choice to basically imply that women aren't, confined to the home in the 24th century. So that's not really a career.
Yeah, I could see. I can see that. I thought it was weird. I don't know. Like, she was so sad because she didn't have a choice in it. And I found her very tragic. Like, she had no idea that she had died suddenly and that she was being shipped into space and that she was going to wake up with no one, and nobody. But everybody woke up with nobody and no one.
Right.
But I really felt like somebody could have taken her aside and been like, this isn't 1989 anymore or whatever. You have a lot of options for...
Troy should have been...
Oh, I know.
She should have been with all of them the entire time. Like, I understand that, she has, like, tactical knowledge that she's helping brief Picard on and everything like that, but so do other people. And she's ship's counselor. Her first job should be to counsel people.
But she doesn't even get called in to be a counselor till, like, 3/4 of the way through the episode. He's like, let's get the ship's counselor in here.
They don't even bring her in until they're like, oh god, she's crying now. You would think they'd be like, okay, these people have been dead for 400 years and we're going to wake them up now. We should probably make sure we have a psychologist on hand to, walk them through the process.
Well, quite literally how it happened is Bev said, oh, hey, Captain Picard, I unfroze those mystery people. And he's like, the who?
Sure, what?
Yeah, like, what mystery people? What frozen people? Like, it was totally like Data went out and found some kids and brought them home and said they'd live with us now. I don't know. It was so weird.
Also, when they first woke them up, they're like, oh, we should have security here just in case. Let's bring Mr. Worf. I'm like, how about bring any human security officer? They're going to wake up and the first thing they see is Worf.
I did not foresee it because I wasn't thinking of Worf as an alien. But when it happened, I was like, oh, yeah, that was really stupid.
Although, but she like sees him and then just faints. And I'm like, nobody faints like that. That's like such an old trope of Hollywood. Like, especially for women, a woman sees something shocking, goes and faints. I'm like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, it doesn't happen. One time I saw a snake I wasn't expecting, and it was like 6 feet long in Yellowstone. And I like everything went black for a second, and I like backed up, and I felt like I was gonna pass out. But that was the closest I've ever gotten, was because I thought I was gonna die. How about the fact that when the woman starts crying, Picard is just like, oh, hell no. Deanna, Deanna, where are you?
Counselor Troy, I need you to deal with women issues.
There is a crying woman. And I work in a counseling office in a school. And so this episode in particular, I'm the counseling secretary for our whole office. And I kept thinking about what it would be like to have Deanna be one of my counselors. Because I'm constantly having to be like, hey, this kid needs this, or I need help with this, or, you know, the admin's calling you and you need to go up there. And I was like, it'd be so weird to have to be like, hey, Deanna, your appointment's here, and have her be like, I know. I was trying to imagine like what it would be like to have Deanna as the counselor. She'd be really good at the social emotional stuff, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. I just wanted the mom to realize there was so many options for her. I really wanted them to talk about equality and like stuff like you don't have to be focused on being a homemaker. Like, here's all these other things. What were you interested in before you had kids? I mean, and plus at her age and being all healthy and stuff, she could have more kids. Like,
she was like in her early 30s. Yeah. I
mean, she was real young.
She had young kids. Like when she died, her kids were like 5 and 8. So yeah, she's young.
Yeah. So I don't know. I felt like to be like, hey, here's Beverly, our chief medical officer on this giant spaceship. Look what she's doing with her life. See, we treat women differently than where you come from. Mm-hmm. And there was none of that. And then why did they let the financier go on for so long before they were like, dude, there's no money? Like, the whole episode, I was like, just tell him there's no money. Yeah, tell him money doesn't matter. Why are you draying this out?
I know. I got the feeling like some of them were just so unfamiliar with the concept they didn't know how to broach it with him.
Yeah.
Like Riker just is like, dude, I don't even know. I don't know what money is.
But like you just said, they know the Ferengi.
Yeah, but I don't know. It just seems like
it felt weird. It felt weird because like that was his whole motivating factor. And then he gets on the bridge. Okay, this is just I got a problem with security on the Enterprise still.
Why was he allowed to make that call when Picard's like, on the Enterprise, we have self-control. We don't need security lockouts for this. And I'm just sitting here thinking, you are a capital class ship that is transporting guests from, like, say, diplomatic things all over the place. I mean, just 6 months ago, you had the Sele and the Antikins eating each other on your ship. You absolutely need a security lockout on essential ship functions like the intercom. What are you talking about?
I know. And then he gets up there and he just toddles up to the bridge. And then they're like, get him out of here. And the security officer instead, in the gold, stands there with his arm cupped around his upper arm like he's going to lead him out. And then just stands there.
That is a problem that is so common, not just in Star Trek, but just in fiction in general, when like somebody's being arrested, but they're like, wait, I have something to say. And then the people arresting them are like, oh, okay, we'll let you go so that you can keep talking.
I know.
No, if you're struggling against two security officers who are trying to escort you out, they're going to put your ass on the ground.
I know. Like, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, why is this guy up here? Like, and I mean, you know, I've brought up other things like when people could like teleport straight to the bridge and stuff, but this was just a man wandering around in places he doesn't belong. And I understand that we're supposed to have self-control, but humans are still humans. And there's a ton of civilians on that ship. Like, I think there has, and I asked last episode, I think, why there wasn't key cards or something.
Yeah.
But like the computer could just say, hey, you're not allowed to be in here. I'm not letting you in here, you know?
No, you shouldn't. Unless you are a bridge officer, you should not have access to the bridge.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Because there can be an emergency. You could have a normal human reaction to an emergency, and you could just bust your butt up to the bridge, and that's not okay. I do have a note here that says, if he breaks into song like a f***ing hobbit, I will kill him. I was not having it with Sunny.
How about when, like, Data said that, because Sunny wanted to watch TV on the screen, and Data's like, oh, TV died out in, like, 2040.
No, I was laughing about that, yeah.
No, do they mean television as in television stations? Because I could see that. Everything's online now, but did he mean TV as in, like, serialized video entertainment? Because I certainly hope that's not dying in 20 years. I like TV.
But think about TV. Think about, because we hadn't had the golden age of television yet. This is 88, right? So, like, this is one of the shows that actually, like, made other shows like it happen. Like, when you look at the type of the long-running shows, I think people thought TV was going to die out. I think, and then we had The Sopranos, and we had all these, like, big... Like, HBO had a huge hand in the TV revolution, you know?
And then we had streaming where people, if they missed an episode, could just binge it all at once.
And now we get real stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, long-running stories. And I don't think TV is going anywhere, but I realized when he said that, it made me think about the Enterprise in general, because they can go on the holodeck and they can pretend stories. But if there's no movies and TV, and, like, they're only reading old books, it seems, not new books, like, where are these people getting entertainment? Because I don't think we evolved to the point where we don't need entertainment anymore, especially if we don't need money and stuff, because we're going to spend a lot of our times entertaining ourselves.
Yeah, it seems it's a little weird. Pretty much any time a character is, like, engaging with a work of fiction, like either like a holodeck program that's like a holo novel or something like that, or they're reading a book, it's always something from present day past. It's never, like, something that was written in, like, 2100.
Because they'd have to make up a whole new story for that or whatever. But actually, they do that anyway, because they did it with the Slade Wilson character. That's not his name. The character that Picard plays in the holodeck.
Dixon Hill.
Dixon Hill. So, yeah, they created that whole story.
But it's still set in the 1940s. It's still based on, like, that the Sam Spade kind of a character, the noir detective genre.
Which is comforting to us.
Yeah. And on Voyager, Janeway had, like, a running thing where she was doing, like, a Jane Austen holo novel or something. It wasn't Jane Austen, but it was in that style where she was, like, the governess of a rich man's house or something like that.
Why? What? I'm just going to tell you right now, if I get a holodeck, I'm not pretending I'm someone's fucking governess. I'm just going to tell you right now. If I get a holodeck, I am doing some cool stuff. Like, I don't understand. Okay, well, maybe when we get to Voyager, if we get to that point, we can have a discussion about that.
But, like, on other series where, like, characters have engaged with media, like, say, movies or cartoons, like Tom Paris. He's a geek with a severe focus on Americana. He likes being a grease monkey. He likes watching cartoons, stuff like that. And then on Enterprise, they have, like, movie nights. And all the movies that they showed, they were usually showing things that were, like, in public domain at that time, or it'd be, like, old stuff, or, like, there was one time where one of the characters showed a visiting alien the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. So movies still exist, and I think even on Discovery they had, like, a movie night at some point.
Yeah.
But they're always engaging with ancient fiction. They're not engaging with near fiction.
It seems like it's just an oversight in the writing. And I did ask at one point, like, what caused, like, all of this stuff to, like, stop where they didn't. And you said there was a World War III, but how long did that last for?
It was a 10-year war.
That's nothing in the span of 400 years.
Right, but 600 million people died. I mean,
oh geez, yeah.
That's
okay.
It was a nuclear. It was a nuclear holocaust. Like, it was a huge...
So it was a huge war. And then, so the Earth that we see, like, in the first episode that we were talking about, that's like a completely rebuilt Earth after. Yeah. So the last few things I want to touch on are, I didn't know Worf's parents were killed by Romulans. Was that established this episode?
I'm trying to remember it, because you knew his parents were killed. I don't remember if he had said that it was a Romulan attack in that episode. So
I don't
it
think
might
he
have been.
did, but yeah.
It might have been this one that has established it, but yeah, Worf hates Romulans. He
Like, kind of has a reason,
hates
though.
Romulans.
Like, I mean, not that I'm saying like that racism or whatever is okay. It's not racism when you hate an entire. What is it? Is it xenophobia? Is that what it would be?
Xenophobia, yeah, or speciesism, or something like that.
It's not okay because like you can't judge every single individual person, but like, I mean, in this particular case, I can kind of see like being distrusting of them in particular. He also hates the damn Ferengi. Don't forget.
Worf is kind of just a
rage monster. Yeah,
that's
okay. He's a fluffy
person.
little rage monster.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Worf is quickly becoming one of my favorite characters.
Oh, you're gonna love Worf. I mean, I don't think I would like Worf as a person in real life if we were hanging out, because he's kind of...
He doesn't bathe, apparently.
He doesn't bathe, and he's kind of conservative, and I don't know, I feel like I don't think we would get along. But I love him as a character. And he has a great arc, especially because after this he goes on to Deep Space Nine, so we get even more of him.
Oh, is he on Deep Space Nine? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or I knew it and forgot it, because that happens a lot. So here we are at the end of season 1.
Yeah, so this is your first time going through TNG, and you have finished the first season. How do you feel about it?
I don't know. So I've been thinking about this question. You said we would do this, and I've been trying to think about how I feel about it. And I think all that I can really say is it's so different than I expected it to be.
What did you expect?
I think I expected it to be episodic and only episodic, which it is, but there's character development that goes on in between those episodes, in between the monster of the week, you know?
Right.
And you grow to actually like these characters, and they all have these individual personality traits that are interesting, that you're watching develop. I've gone from like really not being able to stand Data to really like relating to Data. And I don't know if the writing changed or if it was because I had some sort of like stigma of what I thought Data was.
Well, you hate robots, so. I
do hate robots inherently. As far as like when I sat down to watch The Next Generation, even before we thought of this podcast, I thought all of these people that I know love this show. Like, I found out recently, and I don't know how I didn't know this, that one of my best friends of like, I'm doing the math real quick, I think it's like 25 years, she rewatches The Next Generation 3 times every year.
Wow.
It is her comfort show. And I didn't even know that, like, because I guess she just assumed I wasn't into Star Trek, so she doesn't really talk about it. But it's like the kind of show she puts on and just has going while she's doing stuff. And she finds it very comforting. And I had no idea. So now we've been talking about it, and she loves Deanna. She loves, she was like, she was very mad about Tasha being killed off too. So we talked about that. And like, it's open. That's another thing that it's done, which is kind of a side note, is I've always had all these friends that love the show. I now can interact with them about it, which is interesting too. And so it's created this other like fandom and now I'm starting to, I understand memes when I see them more. I understand the characters. I did learn about Tasha dying through a meme, but like, I mean, we can't really blame the internet for spoiling something from 30 years ago.
I feel like the statute of limitations is lifted on that one.
Yeah, I can't get mad about that. Even if it wasn't supposed to go down that way. But like, I don't know. I actually am excited to see where it goes. I think that I wasn't expecting that. I think I thought I'll watch this and I'll try to understand why people like it so much. And now that I'm at the end of season 1, I don't have to pretend. I don't have to be like, oh yeah, I guess I can see why people like it. Like, I'm actually like ready to see more happen. Like when we talk about episodes and you're like, oh, that's coming up, or oh yeah, you're really going to like this episode in 5 seasons away or whatever. I'm like, okay, well, like when you used to say that at the like first couple episodes, I was like, dude, I don't know if I'm making it to 7 seasons. You know? And now I'm like, how many seasons away until I see that episode? You know? So I think I understand it now. I understand the love for TNG. I understand why it is people's comfort show, because it is comforting. There is a comfort to the repetition, kind of just the formula. Like sometimes it's just nice to have that, like, and here's the commercial break, and here's the commercial break, and here's the commercial break where you come back and there's 8 minutes left. Like it's that is comforting, I think. But like, there's no There's plots and stuff, like I hate Sonny. I've said that at least 20 times. I hated him, and I was not my favorite character, even as like a bad guy or whatever. Like I just didn't like him. But that doesn't make me inherently hate the show just because there's some episodes that I don't like. Whereas with some shows, you do a couple episodes and it just tanks the whole show. And I don't know, I really like it. Like actually genuinely like it. And I never really liked the original series because it was there and I watched it as a kid and it was on the TV and everybody knew about Captain Kirk and Spock. And I was just like, yep, everybody knows about Star Trek. This is the first time that I actually have an emotional connection to the story, to the characters, to the people. And I mean, on top of all of that, it's something that I get to do and I get together with you, my friend, and I get to talk about the show that you love. And so in that way, I love it too, because I get to, now you and I are getting to relate about things that we've never been able to relate about before. And we had Manda on and I got to do it with Manda and I got to meet Silent and I thought that was really cool. Like, so it's brought all these cool things and like, it gives me just another way to relate to my nerdy friends because we're just a bunch of nerds, you know? And I love it.
One thing that stood out to me in what you said a little bit ago, when you said that you were finding friends who watched Star Trek that you had no idea about. Growing up in the 90s, it wasn't really cool to like Star Trek. I mean, I was a bullied nerd all throughout, middle school and high school. So Star Trek was something I pretty much kept to myself. Anytime I met somebody who did like it, obviously I was just like, oh my God, finally one of my people. But it wasn't really something that it was cool to admit that I liked. And so I can kind of understand that, discovering, oh, you like Star Trek? Well, I never knew that. Well, because like, for those of us who grew up in the 90s, a lot of us just didn't mention it because, we were bullied for it.
Right. Yeah, like that makes sense. That makes total sense. And so, I mean, it must be kind of cool now that it's for you. Yeah, that it's so like prevalent and out there and you can walk around and be like, yeah, I like Star Trek. And anybody who makes fun of you everybody's going to be like, what are you doing? That's not cool. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I met you as a Star Trek nerd. Because you were doing Nano. Yeah. And then Amanda, who we had on, was involved in Phoenix at that time, like at the time that I met you. And so it was one of the first things I knew about you was that you like Star Trek. And to me, like, it's just another fandom. Like that's how I've always kind of seen it. But now that I've watched this first season, and I'm sure as it continues to go on, I'm going to realize why the Star Trek fandom is what it is, because there's a lot of heart in this show that I don't think some of the other fandoms have.
The way that we think of fandom was kind of like pioneered by Star Trek, I want to say.
Mm-hmm. I can agree with that.
Fan fiction, like Star Trek fanzines in the 70s is what kept that show alive. And that was slash fiction as a term originates from the slash in Kirk/Spock. So Star Trek is so foundational to so many of the genetic elements of fan communities. Pretty much all started with it. I mean, there's always been, fandoms of things in different ways, but as the way that like social media and everything has been developing in the last, half century, Star Trek was at the forefront of all of that. In the 80s, one of the biggest ways to engage with the Star Trek fan community was on like BBSs.
That makes sense.
Star Trek is like one of the foundational fandoms, and I'm glad you're in it finally.
I think there's a lot of love in the fandom too. I think there's a lot of people that are like, there seems to be a lot of kindness. Like, and when I make jokes in my small group of friends now, like I only have like 100 people on my Facebook because I keep it really locked down because I just went through a lot a couple of years ago and I keep myself locked down. But when I make a joke about Star Trek or whatever, nobody like jumps on to be like, oh, well, that's just a stupid thing to like. Like everybody, I think, has a small experience, at least in a small way, where they interacted with Star Trek in a positive light, whether they saw the original series in syndication as a kid or they grew up with the movies. I mean, everybody knows the Whales movie, right? Like it got played on TV a bunch when I was like 10 or 11. It was always on what we call Channel 11 because that was the show. That was the channel that always had like the movies playing on Saturday afternoon and stuff. Yeah. And I think that it's so widely prevalent that and there's so many different types of characters that you can find characters that you really like, It's like, even with me in the Next Generation, like I really attached to Wesley and Tasha early on, and I'm still attached to Wesley, but Beverly, man, that woman has grown on me. She's probably one of my favorite characters. She probably is my favorite character at this point because she's there more than Wesley. But I didn't expect to like it this much. Let me put it that way. I expected to watch a show and have it be like, now I understand the cultural joke. So now I get this and now I get that or whatever. I expected it to be one of the many, many, many things that in my adult life I have brought myself up to date with because I was raised in such a weird way where we didn't watch a lot of media. And I just thought it would be just another thing that I added to my list of things I now watched that I had never seen. And instead, I've really found something that I really like. And I really enjoy. And I'm like, that's why I can do this podcast, is because I can watch these episodes and I'm excited to talk about them. Like, and like I said, I get to talk to my friend, you, about them. But like my husband and I now watch them together and then we listen to the podcast together and like we talk about it and stuff. And I mean, it's just, I'm enjoying it, and I'm really, really excited to see where it goes in season 2 because I know that's where it really starts to take off.
Well, that's when it grows the beard.
I'm ready for the beard.
Yeah, I'm not gonna miss smooth face Frakes.
Baby face, yeah.
He needs that proper fuzz on his face.
Yeah, I saw a picture of him the other day, and I was like, I'm so ready for that beard. Well, I think that's the end of season 1 for us.
That is.
Thanks for joining us today, and I'm Ari.
And I'm GayFesh.
And until next time,
live long and prosper. Thank you for listening. You can find more episodes on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Twitter at RestBothWorlds. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/RestOfBothWorlds for bonus content and hear your name at the end of each episode.